We'll get started momentarily. I'm Patty Lackman, and I am the moderator from the League of Women Voters of Central Kane County. We are sponsoring this forum with a number of neighborhood groups from the east side of Aurora. And we are looking very forward to this interesting forum. I live in Batavia, so we have to have a ringer from Aurora that knows some of the issues. I have Barbara King and Susan Russo from the League of Women Voters as question reviewers. I have Dick Smith from Stonegate, Caroline at Stonegate, as an assistant to the question reviewers. I have Marianne Noss from the League of Women Voters. If you could stand up, Marianne.
Right here.
She is the timekeeper.
Stop.
Let me tell you a little bit about the League of Women Voters. We are a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in citizens of government. We never endorse a candidate. The League of Women Voters sponsors candidates forums just like this one so that voters are educated and informed on the issues and the candidates' stands on the issues. We want to present this forum in an open and unbiased setting because we are nonpartisan. Thus the reason that none of the political stuff can come into this room. There will be hopefully a meet and greet with the candidates afterwards outside in the lobby. The candidates tonight have agreed that their organizations and staff will not use any forum, portions of the forum, or any audio clips, video clips, or transcripts in any campaign advertisements or for other reasons. It's very important that we remain nonpartisan. Each candidate will be given a 2-minute opening statement. They will have 1 minute, 1.5 minutes to respond to the questions that are asked. And Mary Ann will hold up the time cards when there is 30 seconds left.
And stop.
I will allow the candidates to finish their sentences, but then I will stop them. As I said to the candidates, it's really important that your questions get asked and answered. When the red stop sign is raised, as I said, the candidates will finish their sentence and we will stop it. Questions will come from the audience. They will be reviewed by the 3 people at the table. Only written questions will be used and must be addressed to all of the candidates. The questions must be reviewed for appropriateness and clarity, and to make sure that there's not a question that can't be answered by all of the candidates. There are individuals in the audience who will distribute the cards. We have Lona Steele from the League of Women Voters, and she will give them out and pick them up for submission up to the question reviewers. Not all of your questions will be able to be asked and answered due to time constraints, but in all likelihood, your question will be similar to someone else's question. So we'll combine them so that we can get as many different questions asked as possible. Tonight's forum is being filmed by Alexander Perez from the city of Aurora. Alexander, stand up. Thank you very much. And we appreciate that this will be shared with local cable TV after tonight's forum. With no further ado, let us get started. I would ask Ms. Chapalavia to please give an... Oh, good point. Would everyone please turn off all of their cell phones? Nobody wears pagers anymore. Or any kind of buzzy kinds of things so that they don't disturb the forum. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, with no further ado, we'll start with Ms. Chapalavia for her opening for 2 minutes. Thank you. Now, the clock may start.
Good evening, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this venue on with our neighborhood groups. It is so important that you're engaged in what's going on in the city, and especially the mayor's race. My name is Linda Chapalavia, and I'm running for mayor of Aurora. I'm delighted to be here and joined with my fellow candidates here. I'd like to get right down to the point on why I'm running for mayor of the city. I think we need to focus on a rock-solid commitment to transparency, ethics, and accountability. Now, that's no slam on the present administration. I think that's what the people of the city deserve, okay? Second, I want to focus on an economic development and jobs plan for the whole entire city, not just downtown. And I want to make sure that our projected revenue and our spending behavior is sustainable in the city. Okay? And as a result, what we'll find is we're going to find that we'll have money to fight gangs and drug crimes and safer neighborhoods. We're going to have money so we can get to the teachers and the students so they can have the resources they need to have a productive future here in Aurora. And last but not least, we'll have job opportunities because we're going to be going out there and attracting more business to Aurora. And the bottom line is when we do that, all the people's aspirations in this room are lifted. And that's what I'm going to be about. It's an incredible time right now in Aurora, too, to double down on what our last mayor, Mayor Wisner's done, and take advantage of that and take it to the next level. My parents came here 50 years ago. They raised their children here, and I'm raising my children here. After graduating from the University of Illinois, I joined the United States Army, became an Army officer, met a fantastic guy that decided to marry me. We opened up businesses. We had 13. Then I decided to run, and I won for state representative 15 years ago. And I've been very lucky to run for that, and I look forward to taking your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Guzman.
Well, good evening, everybody, and I also want to thank the League of Women Voters, the homeowner associations, and all of you for coming out this evening. My name is Rick Guzman, and I'm running for mayor because I believe Aurora is at an important crossroads. Aurora's made tremendous strides in the past 12 years, but much of our success is still unrecognized. Much of our potential is still unrealized. And I believe in order for Aurora to reach that next great level, we need a mayor who can bring three things. One, executive experience. And in that regard, I'm uniquely qualified to be the next mayor, not only for my 5 years in the mayor's office, but for an entire career spent in the executive branch of government, getting results and performing job duties like that of mayor. Two, we need a mayor who can innovate, particularly in a time where there are added pressures on our budget, where there are reduced resources that are coming to us. And last year, the organization Emmanuel House that my wife and I founded was recognized internationally as one of the 100 most innovative organizations of 2016 for taking an out-of-the-box approach to a long-standing problem, and for our inclusive model that seeks to include those whom we attempt to help in the process of sustainability, by becoming first-time homeowners and sometimes first-generation homeowners in the city of Aurora. The third thing is a proven ability to bring people together and to get results, because results matter. And my inclusive and collaborative approach to leadership, seeking to match the limited resources of local government with the unlimited potential of our community, has gotten some big-time results, leveraging tens of millions of dollars of outside investment to revitalize our city. And my commitment to you is that my administration will be defined by this collaboration and inclusivity that I believe is needed to get Aurora to that next great level.
Thank you. Mr. Irvin.
Good evening, everyone. And too, thank you for coming. The large crowd that we have shows that there's a huge interest in seeing what the city of Aurora is going to be about in the future. And actually, this is going to be about, are we as a city going to take 10 steps forward or 10 steps back? 10 steps forward or 10 steps back? 10 steps forward is building on our successes that we've already had, building on our foundation, our infrastructure, our new roads, new bridges, new expressway ramps, our new fiber optic network. Are we going to reduce crime in Aurora and keep it in check so we can maintain our positive image and perception that we worked so hard for over the last decade or more? Are we going to be able to focus on improving our education, both on our east side and our west side, because people moving out of the city based on the success of their school districts? Are we going to make sure we drive down taxes? Especially so, I see there are a number of seniors in the room. So our seniors and our young people aren't taxed out of the homes that we've all come to love and love about the city of Aurora. 10 steps forward or 10 steps back. Now, I will be the person running for mayor on the stage that would take us 10 steps forward. You're going to hear a lot of onlys tonight. This person is only this, and this person is the only that. I am the only person on this stage elected citywide in the city of Aurora. On the city council right now, there are only 2 people, myself and Bob O'Connor, who's an alderman, and also the mayor right now. 2 of us. And over the last 10 years, when he and I worked together, we've worked together on issues that affect the whole city, whether it be the street program that he and I worked on, whether it be the Human Relations Commission that affects fairness in the whole city. I'm the only one with the experience for the whole city. And I want to make sure that I'm the mayor for everyone throughout the city of Aurora, east, west, north, and south.
Thank you. Mr. Seville.
Thank you. I would like to thank everyone for coming out this evening, and the League of Women Voters and the homeowners associations, to give us an opportunity to present ourselves and answer the questions that are of concerns to you. Schools, public safety, and the economy. Again, my name is Mike Seville. I'm the current alderman of the 6th Ward, and that's why I'm running for mayor. I've been an alderman for 32 years. I'm in my 9th term, and I've been serving the city since really 1980, when I was appointed on the Planning Commission for 4.5 years. Experience, leadership, vision, and ideas. That's what I'm bringing to the table. In these 32 years experience, I've served on all the different standing committees of the City Council, Government Operations, Building Grounds and Infrastructure Committee. I've served on the Finance Committee 18 years, going over the budget line item by line item. I've in fact voted for 32 balanced budgets in 32 years. I've been serving on the Planning and Development Committee, voting for development throughout the city. I've also originated and served on the Riverwalk Commission. I've also been Mayor Pro Tem. I can best lead our city from day one because of my experience. I don't need on-the-job training. I know how to listen to people, to form cooperative partnerships, and get the job done. I don't look for Band-Aid solutions. I look for long-term solutions. After all the challenges that we are faced with in our city are the result of people making decisions, and we can overcome them by working together and solve those challenges that our city faces. Now, beginning with schools, my administration will work with the school districts. We need to expand the tax base, school districts 129 and 131. Regarding public safety, my administration will work with the police department, expand the community-oriented policing, and I'll talk more about that later. My time is up.
Thank you. Now we'll start with question number 1, and we'll start with Mr. Guzman. What new economic development, if you become mayor, would be your top priority? You have a minute and a half.
Well, I've proposed a number of things, and I think that the main thing is that I want to propose taking a more proactive approach to economic development. In the years prior to the recession, there were so many things coming in that we oftentimes just reacted and sometimes didn't make maybe the best choices about economic development. Then things dried up for a while. And as we've come out of the recession, I think we've done a better job of putting RFPs out for buildings that we've gotten, of being able to do a better job of saying, here's what we want, here's how we can work with you. And so one of the things that I've proposed is this inclusive approach. I'd like to make permanent a geographically targeted business forums that Invest Aurora has conducted on a somewhat regular basis, but that include the residents around particular retail corridors, that include the businesses to get buy-in from them about what they want to see, because we can only make progress together. That's why I started my campaign with a listening tour. And I think that if we take targeted economic plans for strategic corridors, and even entire new master plans for areas like West Plaza that may need to be redefined completely, If we do that in an inclusive way, that doesn't say, here's what the city has decided is best for you, but involves everyone in that process, I think that we can make some tremendous strides in economic development.
Thank you. Mr. Urban.
Thank you. As mayor, I'll recreate the economic development division. We haven't had one for a number of years. And our focus will be to capitalize on our resources, our river that runs through our city, our transportation hub, to build not just a downtown plan, but an economic plan for each individual ward. Now, this isn't speculation, and in my job as Alderman at large, I've already reached out to Shodine and talked to him about starting to build the property on Broadway. And he said, based on the next mayor, if they want a partnership with him and they believe in that mayor's vision, he would be ready to build those condos or high-end apartments within a year. I already meet with the Small Business Council every 2 weeks for the last 6 months. The Small Business Council has talked about building new development in Aurora. One of the businessmen on that council who owns a hotel downtown and over on Orchard said, Richard, as soon as you become mayor, I believe in you and your vision. I'm willing to put more skin in the game and I'm willing to invest more money in Aurora. He says, I want to build a hotel, full conference center downtown Aurora. Another restaurateur who has a business both on the east side and west side says, Richard, when you become mayor, I want to build a restaurant, an Italian restaurant right downtown Aurora. It's not speculation, I've already been engaged in these types of things. And I want to continue to engage and attract people to the city once I become mayor of Aurora.
Thank you. Mr. Seville.
Yes, thank you. 3 things: our economic corridors, our downtown, and fiber optic. I will, from day one in my administration, begin to concentrate more on the economic corridors in our city: Orchard, Galena, Farnsworth, East New York Street, Hill Avenue. Those are the corridors that will help drive our economy and help our inner city school districts 129 and 131. The Aurora downtown, yes, we do need to work with Shodine and find out if they're willing to proceed. We had a proposal with them before the recession hit, and we need to hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they're willing partners with us and develop that. It will be the amount of housing units plus the 250,000 square feet of retail space that will help rejuvenate the downtown. But more importantly, we need to look to the future, and that future is a smart economy. And what I mean by that is establishing and building upon the 67 miles of fiber optic that we currently have in our community. There is a reason why all these came to Aurora recently, to locate in this neighborhood over here in Corporate Boulevard, because they want the ability to tap on to our fiber optic. We have more fiber optic than any other community in the state of Illinois. We need to build upon that. All of these came to Aurora to download 100 gigabytes a second with the idea of expanding it to 200, and we need to build upon that.
Thank you. Ms. Chapelivio.
Thank you. The question was what new economic development would be your top priority, correct?
Yes.
So I have had the pleasure of working with over 120 businesses in our community, business women and men, that have come to me and giving me a blueprint just for our reform agenda on what we would like to see done before we can go out there and court people to make sure that businesses know that we're going to be open for business and we're not going to put roadblocks in place. So our economic reform agenda addresses 3 key issues. It's changing the culture of the city government. We have great structure. What happens is what we call leapfrog commercial, dropping in a place here, not developing around here and going there, but we have great places that we can rehab. So we need to change the culture of the city of Aurora and the city government. We need to educate and evaluate our programs and our ordinances to make sure they're in line today, where we can save money so we can put it back into the taxpayers' pockets and go find those new jobs and those new businesses to move into our area. And of course, execution of the plan, polarization and sustainability, making sure that we're helping the businesses that we do court to make sure that they stay here and we help them become extremely profitable. It's very, very important. And I am the only candidate that has open businesses and employed over 50 people in those businesses. So I am a business person. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2. And we will start with Mr. Urban. What is being done to increase security of oil tanker trains going through town? Do you have any ideas?
Well, you know, a couple years ago, while in the city council, we addressed issues of trains going through Aurora. The issues that we addressed not necessarily were the potential spillage or the trains or the oil tankers going through. It was the noise that was the issue, the loud horns that were blaring through Aurora. We put an ordinance in place to make sure that those trains didn't create noise pollution and affect people in the neighborhood just because they had trains going by their houses. And anybody who lives in Stonebridge in the room probably recognizes that. However, I will tell you, this is the first time that I've heard the question about what will we do with trains and oil. But what I would say is that I'm sure there are federal regulations that we would make sure the trains abided to the federal regulations that regulate how they transport any type of fuel or any type of material that could negatively affect our population. Make sure they're following those regulations when they travel through our city. But that's about it.
Thank you.
Good question.
Mr. Seville.
Yes, this is something that the Wisner administration has been working on over the years, especially very closely with Senator Dick Durbin. I attended a press conference last summer at the downtown fire station regarding this issue, and there is a technology available today to make sure that when these tanker rail cars go off the tracks, that they don't leak and explode. You may have seen over the years in different areas of our country that this indeed has happened. And the railroad industry has been fighting, upgrading and spending the money to make their rail cars safer, thereby making our communities that they go through safer as well. And I will continue the initiative that we've been working on with the Senator in Congress to make sure that the railroad industry is held accountable and indeed changes over to these safer railroad cars so all of us in our community can be safe.
Thank you. Ms. Chapalivia.
Thank you. I actually have, over the years, been able to work with Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth now, who's a supporter. But the railroad situation is very, very severe in what's going through our cities, and it's a homeland security issue too. So because I've been so blessed to have relationships at the federal and state level that I don't have to go create, I'm able to work with them and the Railroad Administration and the BFNS and create not only a response, but our fire services and first responders actually get a list of what's coming through our town. Because of the safety there, the public can't know it. Think about the risk there to your lives if someone knew those things are going through. So it's really important. So about 2 weeks, actually 2 weeks ago, I was meeting with the railroad on the issue. The importance here is making sure that Aurora being the second largest city, we have air, we have rail, we have a great infrastructure as far as our 88, but we also need components, federal components that are going to secure our areas, like Homeland Security. And I'm really looking forward to producing that in Aurora because we're worth it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Guzman.
Well, as has been pointed out, the Wisner administration, Mayor Wisner in particular, was a leader in advocacy on this issue. We saw in Canada, a very small town where a tanker explosion caused 67 fatalities. Not too far from here, in Illinois, in Galena, a tanker fatality, or a tanker derailment, an explosion could have been catastrophic, obviously, if it had been coming through the city of Aurora. And I think that there is advocacy that needs to continue at a strong level. I think that the relationship that has been built with Senator Durbin, and I've spoken with him about this issue as well, is one that is vitally important to look at how we actually increase the strength of the tanker cars that are carrying the oil. And that's one of the things Mayor Weisner has been a big proponent of and that we need to do more of. The other thing that we were able to do by keeping pressure on, by partnering with other municipalities that were similarly impacted by this, was we were able to get an overpass on Ogden Avenue that was funded by the vast majority by the railroad and not by the state or by the city. And I think that when we talk about and put the pressure on and show what the impact can be, that we can get big time results like that. About 80% of that overpass was paid for by the railroad. And I think if we can continue that kind of pressure, we can get big results that don't cost taxpayer money here in Aurora.
Thank you. Question number 3, starting with Mr. Seville. What state mandate impacting Aurora would you recommend be eliminated, and what state mandate should be modified?
Well, let me start with the modification first. The pension requirements that the city of Aurora is meeting every year is something that's putting an undue burden on our taxpayers. We are obligated by the state constitution to provide pensions to our city employees. But the agreement that was reached in, I believe it was 1995, has really made the pension formula that the city of Aurora has to meet and is being met very, very expensive. And because of that, the city of Aurora this year in the budget that we just adopted, a balanced budget that we just adopted in December, we had to find an extra $2.1 million for pensions. Now, if you take that into the future, adding another $2.1 million every year, in the year 2040, the budget will be increased by an extra $71 million. That is an untenable situation that has to be looked at and solved in Springfield. We can't do it alone. State mandate to be eliminated is the second question. And I would say the school funding formula needs to be eliminated and reformed. Taxpayers today pay between 40 and 60% of their property taxes to fund schools. We are 47th out of 50 states in the union and how we fund our schools. Now, I was going to say the state of Michigan changed their funding formula overnight just by taking a vote, and I would advocate that Springfield does the same thing in working with the cities and the school districts. Thank you.
Ms. Chapelivio.
Thank you. What a great question, since I work in Springfield. The mandate that we're working on right now is school funding reform with Senator Menard. And this is really, really important. In the state of Illinois, we stand on a legged stool. We have property, sales, and income tax. That's all we have. And we have pushed our seniors out of their homes because of the weight of that. So there's a lot of work being done in this arena, and I'm working with not only the House and the Senate, but the governor's staff on what we need to do to come forward with that. And probably the mandate I would say to lift, because we need to make sure that we're funding pensions at the appropriate rate. We need to focus on an economic job and a jobs plan, serious jobs plan in Aurora. We need new revenue. We can't keep on doing the same things we're doing right now, because the budget, you've heard that they said the city of Aurora budget has been balanced, but they've been dipping into reserves to fill that back hole. And when you get out of reserves, you're done. There's no more money there. So whichever of us become mayor, we're going to be in a situation where we're going to be physically not sustainable to pay for our pensions right now. So we have to be really look into those areas. And that's why I say transparency, ethics, and accountability. It's very important that you know what's in the budget. And when I'm mayor, you're going to be able to see that.
Thank you. Mr. Guzman.
Well, there are no reserves in Springfield to dip into, and that's why they've been continuing to push more and more of the tax burden onto local property taxes. And then a number of the things that have been said are important things that we need to look at. The school funding formula. I think the modification needs to come, as Alderman Seville said, to some of the state pension formulas, which are set by Springfield and paid for 100% by local property taxpayers. And as Mike said, that has been a large increase. A couple of years ago, it was $3.4 million in 1 year. This year, it was 2.1. In terms of eliminating, it's almost, I don't know where to start. Unfunded mandates have become a regular part of how Springfield does things. They pass something because of a special interest, and they don't have to pay for it, and so they send it to the city to take care of. And I could give examples of minimum manning and saying, well, we know how you need to man your fire departments, and we're going to tell you what the minimum staffing has to be. And that has dramatic impacts on not only how we choose to staff and how we can have responses, but it impacts whether or not we can do what we finally were able to do this year and to actually bring on a new ambulance and the crew that was needed and to upgrade Fire Station 7. But we can't do that if we continue to get unfunded mandates that are passed down from Springfield that they don't have to pay for and that they ask you as local property taxpayers to fund.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Talk right into it.
Talk right.
I have to talk, okay. Okay, Mr. Irvin.
All right, I'm going to flip that. I think we should eliminate the requirement for the funding formula for pensions. Eliminate the requirement that the state regulate how we fund pensions in Aurora. We should determine our own destiny. So right now, Springfield determines how we fund our pensions. Springfield is $13 billion in the hole from pension fund liabilities, $13 billion. So they could care less, Springfield, about whether or not we balance our budget and we cover our pension liabilities. However, we've been able to, even though we've had, without raising taxes, although taxes are kind of high, without bringing more income, although we're looking in the future to attract more business and more income to the city. So we eliminate the requirement that we even have to listen to Springfield because Springfield is broken. Secondly, what we need to modify is our school funding formula. It hasn't been modified for 19 years. Our school funding formula has not been changed for 19 years, and we've got folks on the dais up here that said that they're in Springfield and been in Springfield for 14 years. So in the last 14, 15 years, there has been no change which has detrimentally affected our school districts, both on the east side and the west side. Especially our east side, who have more lower income and 80% poverty on our east side that requires it. And the fact that we haven't had a balanced budget in the last 2 years extremely detrimentally affects our school district. Everything we do in the future, every economic development we do, the first question we have to ask, how does this affect our school district?
Thank you. Okay, can you hear it? Okay. Question 4, starting with Ms. Chapalavia. What is your position on charter schools and privatization of public education?
Well, I was the chair of the $9.3 billion for elementary and secondary ed, so the appropriation committee, and that's 860 school districts at the time, and also the policy chair for elementary and secondary ed. I am not the biggest fan of charter schools. Okay, because when we established charter schools, they came in saying that we're going to take 70% of the dollar, so they wouldn't take the whole dollar that we're giving the rest of the school system. And what happened is that they started doing a lot. It was supposed to be a lottery for most of these schools, and it ended up being a specialized school. So there was a lot of issues. The great thing about my comments with my colleagues over here is that, yes, I've been there for 14 years and I've brought back more than $40 million back into this district, and not to mention what people want to take credit for, the EDGE credit that I got done in the 12th hour with the Republicans and Democrats. The River's Edge Development Program, that amazing park, I was able to bring about $8 million back for that. The library, $10 million came from the state. The STEM school at AU, $3 million came from the state. And those were my pieces of legislation that created those. So you can throw stones, but it's going to come back at you, because I am fighting for every dollar that our citizens send there to come back here. And I'm the one that has been doing that for the last 14 years. Thank you.
I'm sorry, the question again?
What is your position on charter schools and privatization of public education?
Well, as much as I'd like to respond to that, I will tell you that my position has been really to focus on what we can do to help all students. And so in that way, I think that while I'm always open to looking at things like magnet schools, opportunities to be able to pilot things, I do think that it is important that we make sure that every child has an opportunity for education, and that that we don't sort of specialize or select areas, which is why it's been really too bad that our schools have been shorted over $50 million during the time that State Representative Chappell-Lavia was the chair of the House Education Committee. You can go on the East website and you can see where and this is on their website, $36 million in 4 years, $10.7 million in 2014 alone, while the St. Charles School District 303 only lost $60 per student, about $700,000. The West schools have lost $17 million. Over 50 million. That's because of a proration. When the state didn't have enough money, they came up with a formula and a plan that disproportionately impacted Aurora schools. We cannot afford for those kinds of results to come to Aurora.
Thank you. Mr. Urban.
Until we address the issues that are going on in our school districts now, I don't think we can even ask any questions about bringing charter schools or anything. We have problems with our school districts right now. East side of Aurora, one of the last districts, District 131, last districts in the state to have no school busing. We have 80% poverty on our east side of Aurora, 65 to 70% poverty on our west side of Aurora. Until we start raising our revenue, there's two ways we're going to be able to afford to improve our school situations. Raise taxes, which no one wants to do because you're going to be taxed out of the house you live in. Your taxes are high enough already. Or raise revenue, and that's what I want to do. As I said, everything we focus on when we bring economic development to the community, if we're going to focus on the Hill Avenue corridor, if we're going to focus on the Farnsworth corridor, if we're going to focus on South Broadway on the east side, the first question has to be asked: how does this positively affect our school districts? Until we can get our school districts, on a strong footing to where our kids are going to school and not dropping out, at 60% rate, we can't ask any more questions about can we bring in another school that might be able to do better. There are teachers that are working in both our school districts that are working hard every day trying to educate our kids but don't have the resources because Springfield has cut those resources from us, especially on our low income side of town. So until we focus on improving the districts that we have in Aurora, I don't even want to talk about anything else.
Thank you. Mr. Seville.
I understand parents questioning education and feeling the need might be an alternative institution like a charter school. I get it. I understand that. But a charter school would take away money from the school districts. Say, for example, a child entered a charter school and dropped out a month later and went back to their school district. They've already received the money for the school year for that child. The school district would then have to educate that child the rest of the year, but not have the money to do so. So I don't necessarily agree that the charter school concept is a good one. What I do agree with is what I said earlier, is we need to change ultimately the school funding formula. Other states have done this. They've done it with one bill. If I have to call from day one in my administration, every city mayor, I will do so to lobby to change the school funding formula. If I have to call as mayor every school superintendent, I will do that as well. If I have to call every school board member and every board president, I will do that as well, because that is really the answer to our educational system in the city of Aurora. We have 6 school districts, and they need to be funded accordingly so our children, which is our future, can have a quality of education and be assured of a living wage and good quality job and a good life to support themselves and their families.
Thank you. Question 5, coming near and dear to my heart. As a former IDOC employee, in regard to youth violence issue, what do you think is necessary to promote and create change with our kids? And we'll start with Mr. Guzman.
Well, I'm a former IDOC employee as well. I worked for several years on the reentry process, and I was the head of the Office of Reentry Management, helping people to return from prison, both juveniles and adults, to be able to find the jobs, the housing, the substance abuse counseling that they may need to be able to put their lives back together. And for youth, really a lot of the things are no different. But one of the things that we had an interesting meeting the other night at Mount Olive Church, and a topic that was talked about significantly was putting a community center on the Near East Side of Aurora. And that's actually something I wrote into my platform over a year ago from working with folks at Maine Baptist Church, Family Focus, a lot of people on the Near East Side. We haven't had a community center there, and there are a number of great organizations performing great services, but they don't have the ability to provide an after-school program or a recreational program or something that could reach a lot of young people because there aren't the facilities that are available to them. And we have a community center through the Park District on the far east side, on the west side, and then on the near west side as well. And I think it's time, and I've got a plan for doing that at little to no taxpayer expense by partnering with community organizations, using financing that we have available, and leveraging resources already being spent to be able to create a community center in an area that is needed to be able to give kids the mentoring and the programming that they need.
Thank you. Mr. Urban.
This goes back to education, and education on a number of different levels, not just education in school, but education out of school. We need more community programs, programs like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, like I'm a product of. Programs like peer jury to when students or kids do get involved in crime, instead of immediately taking them to juvie and throwing away the key, we do things like peer jury so we can educate them on the process before they end up going to IDOC. Once we lose a kid to juvenile IDOC or an 18 or 19-year-old to adult IDOC, it's too late in the game. We've got to be proactive instead of reactive, and that is education. Now, we know kids, especially on the east side and west side of Aurora, they're dropping out of school in impoverished areas because they need to stay home and help their families pay for bills. They've got to participate in their family bills. So if we recognize that the reason a lot of these kids are dropping out, and once they drop out, they're getting in trouble and they're doing no good, if we recognize that, we've got to reinvent co-op programs and work study programs. Remember candy stripers? We got to create relationships with businesses and have a business adopt a school so we can have students, instead of going home, they can actually work and get credit for it and learn a trade for the future. So they could potentially have a job when they graduate from high school. It gets more kids graduating, have a reason to stay because they've got something to focus on. Co-ops, work study, union trade, junior trades, and the military that saved my life.
Thank you. Mr. Seville.
If we truly want a long-term solution for crime in our community, we must not look at band-aid solutions, but long-term solutions to make sure that the young people, the younger generation, has a positive place to go, whether it's after school, on the weekends, or even in the summer. This summer on Monomoy, in my ward, I was approached by David Smith to fund the summer camp, for one of the first summer camps that we ever had on Monomoy. And it was a very effective summer camp. We had about 18 children, Monday through Friday, all day, and had a positive place to go and learn and had positive role models to pattern their lives after. I too was at the Mount Olive meeting on Tuesday, And I too heard the need for a community center on the east side. Now, I voted for the community center, the Fred Rogers Community Center, the former Madonna and Central High School. So I know that there's a need besides what we have with Copley too. And I would work and partner with the Aurora Township, with the Foxway Park District, and seeking grant money to be able to fulfill that need that we have for our young people. We must make sure that their lives have value and are on a positive course in order to affect not only their lives and their family lives, but to be a good community and upstanding citizens of Aurora.
Ms. Chapelivia.
Thank you. The question's important for everybody because we need to focus on our youth because they are the taxpayers of the future. And I'm so happy to have received strong support from law enforcement and educators across the state on my run for mayor. I was recognized by Champions of Children in 2013 to fight crime and invest in kids because we know it's education, education, education to keep the kids off the street. Many of you know that I just got to doing a series on heroin, the usage among teens in our state and our local area here has become a problem. In September, I received a strong endorsement for mayor by the Police Benevolence and Protection Association of Illinois because we have worked over the years to solve these issues. We have schools that taxpayers pay for, and I think a lot of the time we gloss over that. You are already paying for buildings in which we can utilize so these kids can be in there on off hours. I think we need to have summer jobs and internships for teams, mentoring programs, youth groups, community theater and program, prep college programs, and workforce development that I'm working with our over 120 businesses. And the last two, just as a rebut, the last two dollar amounts that we got for East and West Aurora with no interest loans, I brought that money back, the $50 million on the east side and the $24 million on the west side. So we need fact check tonight, okay? It's really important that you look at these things. Thank you.
Question number 6, starting with Mr. Irvin. As Aurora is a diverse city, how will each of you integrate each ethnic group into the city contracts and into city jobs?
You know, it's a great question. When I was first elected alderman, first thing I did was go to Tom Wise and I said, look, we've got to make the way that we do contracting here in Aurora a whole lot more fair. And what we did is we came up with a plan called local preference contracting. Because we have a large minority base in Aurora, which, you know, Latinos and African Americans and other groups of minorities, minorities are about 50% of the city of Aurora. But if you look at the contracting, it does not show that based on the folks getting the number of contracts. So if we do local preference contracting, what that does is a local business who has a number of minorities working for will get a contract preference points over a business outside of Aurora that doesn't have the same minority base or the same number of people from Aurora working at that company. If we do local preference contracting, now other communities do it in in Illinois. If we practice that local preference, not only does that keep our dollars inside of our city, you know, it makes sure that we employ our community members, people inside of Aurora, which is a cycle of spending money in our city. People have jobs here, they live here, they'll spend money here. Businesses are employing people here, spend money here. So it's trying to keep money inside of our borders so we can bring in new revenue streams and drive down the taxes in our tax levy.
Thank you. Mr. Seville.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, I'm in favor of opening up the city. I have been a proponent of prevailing wage over the years, making sure that all city contracts have prevailing wage. I think it's important that people have living wage income. I am in favor of opening up for preferential contracts to make sure that minorities have an active participation and the ability to bid and earn the right to have contracts in our city. I do represent a ward that's very diverse. I have 50% Hispanic population, 12% African American. So I think it's important that we represent the entire city, and the jobs that are being utilized with regard to city contracts are reflective of the population.
Ms. Chapelivia.
This is a great question, because if our city is half minority, this is great up here because you have a Mexican-American, American-Filipino, you have an African-American, and European, probably Caucasian. We have a very diverse city, but yet if you look at the contracts that have been given out over the years, they don't look like us up here. Okay, so it's very, very important that we examine the city's existing procurement processes, business practices, and regional workforce development agenda. So everybody has the ability. But not only that, we need to streamline the process with the permitting department to make sure that if you want to put in an RFP, it's not onerous. You don't have to spend $5,000 on a bond just to get a job in Aurora and not know 100% if you're going to. We need to adopt the best practices in areas to provide opportunity for local businesses and local workforce and what we have. Develop a practical and accessible system for residents and businesses to raise concerns with the city, to reinforce its commitment to transparent government and ethical behavior and accountability. You need to know who's getting those contracts. You need to know how much they're paying. You need to know if they're getting money from a developer that I help bring the EDGE credit back to. You need to know where people are getting funded through their campaigns. It's very important in the process.
Mr. Guzman.
Yeah, I believe that there are a number of things that we can do more of. We have a responsive bidder process at the City of Aurora, and I've talked with a number of minority contractors about going through that process and being able to essentially kind of get pre-qualified, understand what it takes to be able to access city contracts. We have a number of small business administration funded programs that can help people to get minority certified or veteran certified or women business certified. And so I think that those are the kinds of things we can open up our doors at City Hall to make sure that our local contractors and businesses have the opportunities to get government work. I also have proposed in my platform a local contractor preference as well. I think that what we need to do is we need to do more than what we have done in the past in terms of being sure that the local workforce that has been talked about, that is a diverse workforce, has opportunities to get local work. And so what I've proposed is something that costs no taxpayer money, but allows local businesses to be able to, if they're within a very small amount of being the lowest bidder, to be able to match that so that local work can stay locally here and we can get more local residents employed through the work that we do offer.
Thank you. Question 7. If the federal government moves to a policy of systematic tracking and deportation of undocumented immigrants, what are you prepared to do as mayor to protect Aurora from that? We'll start with Mr. Seville.
Well, if the federal government begins that program, there is a separation of powers between federal government, state government, and municipalities. If the federal government becomes with court orders and the FBI and the Nationalization Service, there is not a lot of power that the city of Aurora has, nor does the state of Illinois have. So it would be very hard for any municipality to stop the federal government from doing what is in their powers to do so.
Ms. Chapelivia.
Right now, in the last 14 years, we've had in the General Assembly the Latino Caucus. So we've been able to work hand in hand with our sisters and brothers who are here undocumented in the state and making sure that there's safeguards. But if it's a federal mandate handed down, we'd have to work with our congressmen to see what we can do as a state. We've established a driver's license, an undocumented driver's license, where people are now identified in the system, and this is able to protect them somewhat if something comes down at the federal level. And it's very important that you understand the restrictions around that are very good for everybody. It's training, they have to have insurance. When everybody has insurance on the cars, it's a good thing. I know, we've been hit before when somebody doesn't have insurance. But what we'd have to be working closely with our congressional members, I have a very solid relationship with Congressman Foster, Senator Durbin once again, and the newest U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth I've worked in the past with. And we work together when we cross those bridges. But every person deserves a right to live freely here. So thank you.
Mr. Guzman.
Well, I'm not sure that, and depending on exactly what the system is, I'm not sure that such a system would be constitutional. And so I'm not sure that a tracking system by ethnicity or a tracking system by race or religion or some of those types of things would happen. I think that when it comes to immigration and folks who may be undocumented, the thing that the city of Aurora and that municipalities do have some responsibility and some control over are just really in two areas, because we don't set policy, we don't enforce policy, but there are two things. I think that for those folks who are in our community, who are part of our community, and who are victims of crime, whether they're undocumented or not, whether they witness a crime, they need to feel safe to be able to report that crime, because without that we are all less safe. And right now that's not always the case, and that's why I'm proud that our police chief, Chief Zeman, has gone to many of the churches and explained that we are not going to report you if you report a crime, if you are a victim of a crime. It is important to the safety of all of us to be able to get that message out. But it is equally important that when there are folks who may be undocumented who are committing crimes, that is where our responsibility kicks in. And that is where we do have a responsibility to coordinate with ICE and to be able to report those crimes and to be able to stop those crimes from being perpetuated in our community. So those are the areas of immigration that the city of Aurora has, and those would be the policies that I would continue as mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Urban.
All right, first of all, I think the way that question was asked is very extreme. It almost sounds like, you know, the federal government, based on the way that question was asked, would be chipping and looking and, you know, actively hunting for folks that were illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants. And so that question was extreme. But the way I can answer the question for it to make sense is that the city of Aurora has absolutely no jurisdiction with ICE, which is Immigration Customs Enforcement. We have no jurisdiction. And for us to attempt to legislate jurisdiction is improper. If ICE, let's not even talk about ICE in the future, let's talk about ICE as it exists today. If ICE as it exists today decided that ICE wanted to come to Aurora and deport people that were undocumented, there would nothing the city of Aurora would have jurisdiction over to stop. And I think it's improper for us to attempt to impose jurisdiction, because that's federal jurisdiction. There are a number of jurisdictions, federal, state, local. That is not one of the jurisdictions that a local municipality or even a state can exercise. And for us to attempt to try to exercise or legislate that, I think is inappropriate, and I think it's a waste of our resources and a waste of our time.
Thank you. Question 8, starting with Ms. Chapalavia. What is your position on the Planned Parenthood facility in Aurora?
Is that all the question that applies to? I mean, there's no unsub.
That's it.
I am a Democratic woman, and I stand for pro-choice. I stand in that arena because there's a lot of things that are attacking us these days. I myself wouldn't choose to do that, but I think it's important that, especially with rape and incest and certain issues that might happen, that there is the possibility that that might have to happen. Now, my husband and I started a nonprofit called Fox Valley Maternity Homes, where we take women or girls that are 12 to 17 and that want to have their children so they can have their children and be productive citizens and be great moms. And that's now enveloped over at Mooseheart. And it's really important that we understand about Planned Parenthood is about planning family also. Okay, you might differ on exactly everything, but that is one of the only places that a woman can go to get certain services if she can't afford it anywhere else, or a family can go to get their planning services that they can't get anywhere else. As it stands here in Aurora, I know there's been a lot of controversy on that. I think we got to work together to make sure that women know what they can do so they never have to go to that point, and young girls can do so they never have to use that service.
Thank you. Mr. Guzman.
Well, here again, we have another federal constitutional issue over which there isn't much that the city has control over, and it certainly would not be my policy to expend taxpayer dollars to try to do something that is not under our jurisdiction, to try to challenge something. I think it's right that there are a number of services that are provided at Planned Parenthood that are needed. My personal approach to this issue is one to say I want to get involved in how we can reduce the need for abortions in our community. And so for the past 10 or 12 years, I've been on the board of Family Focus, and I've been involved in a program called Parents Too Soon, where we work with the high schools in our community and identify young teenage mothers who may be in a situation where they're not sure they can keep their baby. And we have gone and provided a support program to make sure that they know that they have people who can stand with them, who will support them, that there are both financial and emotional supports that are available, so that if people want to choose to keep their child, that they would have resources, programs, and loving people to know that they will stand with them if that's the choice that they want to make. And so I think those are the kinds of proactive approaches that we need to continue to be supportive of. And that's something that a city can support. That's an early childhood program that the city has supported, and it would be my policy to continue to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Irvin.
I don't think that question was about Planned Parenthood globally. I think that question was about Planned Parenthood in the city of Aurora. Now, look, I believe our citizens...
It is. It's about the facility in Aurora.
Absolutely. So, which was not answered. So, I believe our citizens have a right to speak out about businesses or organizations or anything that's coming into Aurora. And what Planned Parenthood in Aurora did was use deception to come and set up shop in Aurora without giving people an opportunity to speak out, whether you were for or against it. Planned Parenthood didn't give people the opportunity to speak out before they came and set up shop in Aurora. That's the issue. What Planned Parenthood did to come inside the city of Aurora, and when they did use that deception, I remember we were in city council till about 1:30 with people upset about it because they didn't have an opportunity 1:30 in the morning. It starts at 6 o'clock. They didn't have an opportunity to speak out beforehand. So it was after the fact, and Planned Parenthood had already been set up, I thought that it was wrong how they used that type of deception without giving the people a voice. And that's what it's about, giving our community a voice, and that voice was taken away.
Thank you. Mr. Seville.
Yes, Planned Parenthood does offer a lot of services for women. And I think it's a good facility for people that want information about their health. I wouldn't pretend to tell a woman what to do or not to do with their body. I think it's a personal decision that they have to make with their families and loved ones. The planned facility in Aurora was ultimately a zoning issue. As was mentioned earlier, we do not get involved with federal jurisdictional issues. So ultimately, because it was based only on a zoning issue, they had a right to locate in Aurora at their current facility.
Thank you. Question 9, starting with Mr. Guzman. What do you propose to do with the old Copley Hospital that is still vacant?
Well, I do think that there are some significant possibilities and once again, it will be through a collaborative process where we can repurpose that site. It will be a top priority of mine to do so. And I think that I've got a particularly good track record when it comes to being able to build collaborations to repurpose old hospitals, historic buildings, and to do so at limited or no cost to local taxpayers. So the St. Charles Hospital, we're going to be cutting the ribbon at the end of the month. This is a program where I found a developer. I told them the trajectory of Aurora and how far we had come, and we were able to convince a group of investors to be able to come in and do a more than $20 million restoration of the St. Charles Hospital. And that building was in terrible, terrible condition. It was an eyesore, and it was falling apart, and it needed that $20 million, but ultimately there were no local taxpayers' dollars that had to go in to get that done. I was able to convince another developer to come to Aurora, take another historic property. This time, and it's actually 3 different properties at the cost of more than $35 million collectively, to be able to invest in those buildings, and again, at no local taxpayer expense. There's some TIF dollars that went into that, that some of the folks downtown who own buildings may have contributed a little bit to, but this is going to put a building back on the tax rolls. And so when it comes to historic preservation and when it comes to building partnerships to get these kinds of buildings repurposed, I've had a lot of experience in that, and Copley will be a top priority.
Thank you. Mr. Irvin.
There is no way you're going to repurpose Copley Hospital. That's an old, dilapidated eyesore that should be knocked down and force the owner of that property to clean it up. It's got to go. It's got to go. And then if we force it, we can seize the property, take it, and give it to the Park District or East Aurora School District. That building has been there for too long, sitting, unused and deteriorating our neighborhood. It's got to go.
Mr. Sindel.
Well, I have a personal affinity with Copley Hospital because I was actually born there just a few short years ago. But let me say that, the City Council signed an agreement with Rush Copley when they moved out in DuPage County, where the agreement was that if they can't find a developer to develop it, they would demolish the building. Well, they sold it to a developer to $1. They lived up to the letter of the agreement, but not the spirit of the agreement. And so this is why we're in this mess today. I'm in favor, along with Alderman Irvin, we need to demolish it as well. And I think if we do more for the community to create a park, like we have in my ward at the old high school on Blackhawk. I've been advocating that to become a park since 2011, and we're finally able to make that occur. The concepts were just brought to my neighborhood a week ago Monday, and people had an opportunity to look at the concepts and vote what they wanted to see, which will be developed this year with the Foxtrot Park District. I think we need to partner with them and do the same thing, hold this developer to the feet of the fire. We are going to court, to have a court order to tell the court to either develop it or tear it down. And I think if we can develop it, which I think would be better for a park, and work with the Park District and the school district to have a better amenity for the surrounding neighborhoods, thereby uplifting the community and reinvesting the community in people's homes, which we're going to find across the city where parks are being built in the older neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Chapalipia.
Thanks. I can't believe I'm going to say that, but I agree with the two colleagues over there. And I'm the only one that lives on the east side. I live at 149 South 4th Street. So what I'd like to say is, we have the president of the school board over there for 131. We need to work with the folks over there to see what they'd like in their community. People want places where they can go shop, where they can walk for dinner, where they feel safe, they can walk around, and that we have a good economic development and jobs plan. And part of it, and I give all the kudos for all the parks, but the parks don't generate money the way we need to offset the costs of our people, our guys and our gals that live in our senior beautiful homes over here off Farnsworth. We need to bring in more revenue. We need more property tax to offset so we can give you breaks, okay? And that's what I'm hearing from your community, that you bought a great house, now you can't sell it because your taxes are too high. Well, what I'd like to do is work with the school districts and see what we can put in there that does not add more kids to the school system, but brings in property tax so we can alleviate some of your stresses. Because I want you to sell your homes for a good price. It's all good business.
Thank you. Question 10, starting with Mr. Irvin, and we have 3 after this one, and then we'll go to closing. Do you have an opinion on whether or not the Aurora Township should be annexed into the city of Aurora? Mr. Irvin.
Well, I talked about this 10 years ago. Well, all right. There are a number of areas that are outside the corporate limits of the city of Aurora. However, our are contiguous or right next or inside of the city of Aurora, but is outside of our corporate limits, pockets here and there. Now, I would say that those folks, for example, Mokerville is one. Those folks would have to make a determination if they wanted to come into Aurora and how it would affect their taxes, how we run water to these unincorporated areas that are still on well water. So before we make a decision to just annex an area, we have to find out what the financial, the financial gain would be for the city of Aurora. It may cost too much to run water to those particular areas. Those particular areas, the citizens that live in the area may not want to be annexed into the city of Aurora. There are a number of questions I'd have to consider before I just simply say we're going to just annex Mokerville or annex places that are outside of our corporate limits.
Mr. Seville.
The state of Illinois leads the nation of over 5,000 tax bodies. Over 5,000. Number 2 is the state of Texas. They're about 2,000. So we're double every other state in the union. So if we can look at ways to combine districts and make government more efficient, I'm all in favor of that. We have not only, of course, a multiplicity of villages and states and counties and school districts, library districts, park districts, fire districts, mosquito abatement districts, and on and on and on. So if the people of the Aurora Township would want to join our city, I would welcome that.
Ms. Chapelivia.
I've had the pleasure of actually working with some of the mayors around us on the idea of consolidation on some of these arenas. And our Naperville mayor, Steve Chirico, I've had in-depth conversations with some of the township that it runs against his and how we can save dollars and co-oping on stuff. These ideas should have been done a long time ago. There are a lot of systems, as Alderman Seville says, of local government throughout the state. And there's a lot of cost savings. We went through what DuPage was doing, and there are some ideas there where we should be able to save money for our taxpayers and put them back into their pockets in Aurora as well by doing these things.
Thank you. Mr. Guzman.
First of all, let me just quickly say that when I said repurpose or redevelop, included in the idea for Copley would be demolition. So just to be clear, but that's an expensive proposition, and it is something that will need to be done in partnership, as the other projects I mentioned would be. When it comes to the annexation of Aurora Township, while I do favor finding efficiencies by partnering and consolidating, I think it would have to be in manageable chunks. And the number of folks who are in Aurora Township and scattered throughout our city, there are very significant areas. And I think Alderman Irvin mentioned some cost feasibility analysis that would need to go into that, and I think that's absolutely correct. But I do want to make clear that there are ways and there are other things, and Naperville Township is looking at that. In fact, there's a meeting tonight where they're looking at consolidation opportunities and being able to look at ways to create taxpayer efficiencies through partnership. I think that's the future. The future is that we are going to have to figure out ways that we work together with other units of government, with other institutions, in order to be able to realize efficiencies, because we cannot continue to balance our budget with the pressures that we're getting if we don't look to ways where we can work together, consolidate in some cases, and create efficiencies for local taxpayers.
Thank you. Okay, some confusion over the questions here. I have one that I'm going to kind of put together, and it has to do with taxes. East Aurora taxpayers are overburdened by taxes. How will you bring manufacturing and businesses to School District 131? And what would you do to keep real estate taxes down? Starting with Mr. Seville.
Yes, as I said earlier, the one key point that we can do is to have the state of Illinois changed the school funding formula. With one bill could change the property taxes in our city for everyone overnight. That is the one key that we should be doing. Plus, in my platform, we need to become what I call a smart economy. We need to adopt the future. We have laid, as I mentioned earlier, 67 miles of fiber optic in our community. We are a leader in the state of Illinois. We need to expand upon that. As I mentioned earlier, that's why all these came to our community to camp onto our fiber optic. That's really the future. That is really the future in terms of businesses and good paying jobs and broadening the tax base for our community regardless of where we live. If we can do that, like the communities of Santa Monica, Chattanooga, and Kansas City, we'll be a leader in the state of Illinois, because that's the future. I read on the internet recently that 5 out of every jobs in our economy today did not exist 15 years ago. That's telling us something. That's telling us a lot, and we need to adopt that and be a leader, because the world literally will just pass us by if we don't do that. We can become a leader in export by doing this, and we can set the pace for our community where all will benefit and our youth will stay in our city to embark upon those jobs in our economy.
Thank you. Ms. Chapalivia.
Thank you. I would like to work on an economic development program 4131, which would focus on marketing our schools that we have there. I don't know how many of you knew this, but our Fred Rogers Magnet School was the 2nd highest performing school in the state of Illinois. That's pretty phenomenal. We have the largest junior ROTC program in the country. I'm a Tomcat, which is really important. But I was born on the west side, so I was born a Blackhawk and raised a Tomcat. So I would like to put together a basket, if you will, just like I did when we created the River's Edge redevelopment zone. We have all these different products out there that we can give to incoming businesses to make it more affordable, more costly, less costly for them to move into the east side of Aurora. I'm a real estate broker. I've been in the business since I've been 3 with my mom. And one of the things that we need to look at also is how do we come up with a program like the Outlet Mall. 43 million came in before it doubled, right? All that money went to the Batavia School District. So coming up with a contract on how we work with people we court, regardless of where they're in the city, that a certain portion of money goes into an education fund, whether it's for early education that I want to focus on, or it's for a promise zone where our kids will go to 2 years of community college, Wabanzi, when we help them secure those dollars. But it's really important that we focus on a program where regardless of where the company moves into the city, that we work with them on a program where we can set aside money for the educational system so we can give those kids and the teachers the resources they deserve.
Thank you. Mr. Guzman.
As some of you may have seen, a week or 2 ago, I proposed a new city senior property tax rebate program where people who have, if a senior has a disproportionate increase, which we saw again and again, particularly in many of your communities, over what the average increase might be, that they could apply to have that full amount rebated to them of the city portion of the increase. But that is a small program that was designed to create something that would prevent this kind of disproportionate impact on seniors that we saw over those years. I think the question really is getting at how do we expand the property tax base? How do we, this does also go to fixing the funding formula too, because without doing that, we're never going to be able to make the full progress that we need to do. And I would welcome you to fact check the East Aurora School District website if you'd like to do that. And I would say that the solution was mentioned earlier about bringing $50 million of debt and $24 million of lending that will ultimately be paid back by local taxpayers is not the type of solution that we need. But we do need to be able to work with local developers, as I have done in the programs that I mentioned, to be able to use very complicated tax credit incentives and be able to leverage big results, getting buildings back on the tax rolls at no cost to local property taxpayers is something that we can continue to do.
Thank you. Mr. Irvin.
first 100 days, this is what I want to do with the east side of Aurora. First, I'm going to create a taxing body consortium. Now what this does is it brings all the taxing bodies together so we can coordinate and talk about how we can improve the tax levy for our citizens in Aurora. So we don't duplicate services and overtax. So we bring all the taxing bodies together and talk about how we can reduce taxes for our citizens and reduce the levy. Second, we use our triple A bond rating, refinance our bonds at the lowest rate we can get, take some of that gain, pay down the principal, and then reduce the levy because we don't have to pay so much money toward our bonds. Third thing I want to do is create under economic development with this small business council that I've been meeting with. Create a plan with the aldermen of each ward on the east side specifically, in Ward 1, 2, 3, and 7, which are on the east side of Aurora, so we can create an economic development plan in each of those wards to raise up our development on the east side of Aurora. And finally, I spoke with a property owner, John Bryan, who owns Geneva Construction. He recognizes his property is right on the river. It's prime property. Once I become mayor, he's willing to move his property to the business park and let Aurora vie for that property so we can build some homes and brownstones right there on the river, which will go to the East Aurora School District.
Thank you. Question 12, starting with Ms. Chapalivia. What is your position on equal treatment and rights for gay people and people with disabilities? And how would you help them attain jobs in the Aurora area?
Great question. Right now, when we look through the books of the City of Aurora, we don't really have a clear plan for any of those categories, especially ADA, and how we treat the individuals that are paying taxes and deserve equal pay, equal access to all the things that they get in the city. So I am actually working with special needs community right now on how we're going to transform Aurora to make sure everybody can get a job. I'd like to be able to work with city officials and put aside certain positions for not only people that fall under the ADA requirements, but making sure we're maintaining that the city looks like everybody within the city. It's very important to me that everybody is represented fully at the table, and right now I can't say that with a clear conscience. So it's important that we uphold everybody's rights.
Thank you. Mr. Guzman.
Well, I do think we have policies to make sure that people are treated equitably. And I've been part of the Human Relations Commission ever since it was sort of reconfigured to include all all federal protected classes within that. And so that's something that we have taken very seriously at the City of Aurora. The question also asked the questions about people in those different protected classes. And I am of the opinion that every person has value. Every resident of Aurora can be a resource. Every voice is incredibly valuable. We need to include all folks. Those are the resources. That's what we've got. That's the biggest resource we have in the city, is our people. And those people, one of the best things about Aurora, and I will be the one to tell you that while I did go to church in Aurora my entire life, and I did spend time in Aurora my entire life, I was not born and raised. I chose, and I always say, you don't choose where you're born and raised, but you do choose where you want to raise your kids. And it was the wonderful mosaic of diversity that Aurora offered that I wanted to raise my kids in. And I think that we need to stand behind people who are discriminated against. I think we need to stand behind people to make sure that they have equal opportunity, because that is one of the biggest strengths of our community. And we can be one of the best communities in the world because we have what so many people don't have.
Thank you. Mr. Urban.
Our multicultural mix here in Aurora is our strength. Whether it be on the east side, west side, Indian Prairie, by the mall, it's our strength. And that includes disabled, that includes African Americans, that includes Latinos, that includes Anglos, that includes everybody. Everybody adds something to our strength. The local preference program that I spoke to you about earlier, that local preference program not only had a component in for women and minorities, it also had a component for disabled or ADA, to make sure that we treated everyone fairly and everyone had an opportunity to participate in our local economy. And as I told you, I was on the steering committee that gave the Human Relations Commission its power. Without my participation, it wouldn't have had any power to make any change at all. We gave it its power to be able to make change. And based on that, I think I've shown that fairness is important and an absolute inclusion, which makes us stronger.
Thank you. Mr. Seville.
I too believe that all people have value and that all people should have the same positive self-worth. And I too was on that committee that Alderman Urban mentioned to repurpose the Human Relations Commission along with Alderman O'Connor to make sure that all classes of people were protected. That Human Relations Commission was first established in the 1960s and has done a very good job when discrimination takes place in our community to make sure that people indeed are protected. In fact, in 1992, I think, when I was in the City Council, there was a proposal to change our ordinance to protect all classes of people, including the gay and lesbian community. I seconded that motion when it came to the City Council. And when a final vote was taken, I was the only one to vote in favor. So I've been a little bit ahead of my time, and I continue to support all people. I think all of us are worthy, and I would do my best as mayor to make sure that discrimination does not take place, and if it does, that it comes out and that the people are indeed protected.
Thank you. Final question on a similar note, starting with Mr. Guzman. What is your position on world relief in Aurora for Syrian refugees?
Well, World Relief is an organization that I've actually worked with in the past. I've said again and again that one of the things that has taught me about true joy is being able to work with a Rwandan family who had part of their family massacred in the Rwandan genocide and yet still found joy. To be able to be with families who have experienced tragic losses, things that we could never even imagine, and to maintain their faith through that teaches me about what real faith is. I think that the question that we just got about everybody having value, I think that that's one that we have to, if we believe it, we have to own that. And while it is true that there are legitimate concerns that people have, my understanding is that there is, and I have a bit of history here. The Department of Homeland Security and the Department of State, when they approve people to come here, they do not, they do more exhaustive background checks than anybody else, and this should not be confused with what is happening in Europe right now. Those are folks who are fleeing on boats who are not being screened ahead of time. And they are coming, and they have caused, there have been some significant problems there. But that is not the case of what we see with our pre-screened, Homeland Security cleared folks who are coming to Aurora.
Thank you, Mr. Urban.
Listen, I think World Relief and the job they have is a noble cause. But we've got our own issues here in Aurora. And it's not a cause that I believe the mayor of Aurora should take up. We've got 80% poverty on the east side. We've got 65-70% poverty on the west side. We've had 4 murders in the last 2 weeks. We've got kids dropping out of school at alarming rates. We've got a school formula that doesn't help our school districts, and we've got to scramble on how to make sure we can educate our kids. We have a district that we can't attract people to move into that area because they're worried about how their kids are going to get back and forth to school because we don't have any school busing. We've got we've got economic development plan that hasn't been executed, in decades to build what we need to build to raise up our revenue. We've got so many issues here in Aurora. We can't be bringing any new issues in that we need to address. We've got to take care of our own right here at home.
Thank you. Mr. Seville.
Before the Great Recession, I was a mortgage banker for 16 years. And when the Great Recession took place, I had to find another full-time job in another field. But during that time, as a mortgage banker, I had occasion to qualify refugees occasionally. And the refugee family that's coming to mind in particular experienced great heartache and great troubles in Africa where they came from, which was a civil war that they were in the middle of. And they came to America and they qualified for a green card and got work permits. And because of that, I was able to qualify them for a mortgage. And to this day, they're experiencing the American dream. So I think world relief has its value. I think, as Rick Guzman said, Homeland Security since 9/11 has done an impeccably good job protecting our country and pre-screening these refugees and doing a very good job of making sure our community is safe.
Thank you. Ms. Chacalivia.
I've worked with World Relief as well. They are situated right now in LaSalle, so it's a couple blocks away from my house. And we've had pretty in-depth conversations because their program and the undocumented population is a little bit of a different program. And it's important, though, in a city our size, that we have a balance. We have a balance of what's going on in our city and what social services that you're paying for as taxpayers and as citizens, okay? So that would be extremely important that we do a needs assessment for the city of Aurora to see what the tax-paying citizens need, and then we go forth with that, and if there are dollars to support those areas that we would. But World Relief, for the most part, does not take any dollars from the city coffers, okay? That's federally funded, they get money that way, even though that's your tax dollars too, correct? So we need to sit down and see what the needs assessment of the city is. The last time one was done, I want to say in 2010. But we need to take care of our own here in Aurora. There's a lot of issues that we can accomplish. Once again, economic development and jobs for the whole entire city, plan for the whole entire city is paramount.
Okay, we will start with a 2-minute closing, and we will start with Mr. Irvin. And if you could refrain from applauding until all of the candidates have finished. Thank you. Mr. Irvin, you're on.
As I started this out, I said, right now we have an opportunity to determine if we're going to take 10 steps forward or 10 steps back. I have a plan and a vision. And based on me being alderman at large and elected citywide and working on citywide issues for the last 10 years, I am prepared to take office on day one and roll. My transition will be easy, it'll be smooth, and we can start building Aurora together the day I take office. I won't have a learning curve. I'm not from Springfield. This isn't Springfield, this is Aurora. I have no interest in bringing Springfield and that Springfield broken ideology to the city of Aurora. I'm not a ward alderman. I'm not an employee of the city, of the mayor. I am alderman at large. And the significance of that is that I can make sure that we continue to build on our successes. Now, what does that mean, build on our successes? Well, build on our foundation, our infrastructure, attract business, work with my Small Business Council and the new Economic Development Commission to create the ideas to move Aurora forward. That's what it's about. Creating a vision and executing that vision. My whole life has been about that. From growing up in low-income housing to serving my country in combat during the go forward. I had to make decisions split-second decisions that affected not just my life, other people's lives. As a lawyer, split-second decisions that affect people's lives. As an alderman at large, decisions that affect all of our lives. I want to continue as mayor of Aurora to make the decisions that benefit all of us. I'm in this for all of us. I'm running for mayor of Aurora for everyone sitting in this room and for every citizen sitting and living in the city of Aurora. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Seville.
Yes, I was born and raised in Aurora, grew up on the west side, graduated from School District 129, lived in Aurora all my life, went away to college, graduated with a BA from the University of Illinois, Chicago, naturally in political science. I have literally decades of dedication working for you in our community. No one on stage has been a part of more policies and programs and implementations in this city than I have over the years. I'm running a very transparent and open campaign, so I would urge you to please go to my website. Everything that I've accomplished is there. All the resolutions, ordinances, and policies are listed on there. MikeSevilleForMayor.com, kind of a catchy title. Please spend some time on there. I urge you to. Again, I want to reiterate my campaign, like I said in the beginning. It's all about schools, public safety, and economic development. I will work with every school district and city to try to change the school funding formula for immediate property tax relief. We can do that here in Illinois. I will take a lead on this. Other states have done this, so can we. I have the experience, vision, leadership, and ideas to move our city forward. I'm very positive about what we've been able to accomplish thus far, but we can do more. We can do it together. Just as a reminder, early voting started today. I'm asking for your consideration and your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Seville. Ms. Chapellavia.
Thank you. The idea that we don't want Springfield here is what we're at right now. It's short-sighted and timid. If our Aurora can be doing so many more amazing things. We're good, but we can be better. The library, 10 million. Road construction, millions. The St. Charles Hospital, which he birthed and everything, 3 million from our River's Edge credit program, historical program, that we were able to bring $3 million back. The STEM school, we got $500,000 for Gateway. I can go through the litany of the dollars that I've been able to process and bring here. I don't need time on the ground. I don't need to call certain people. I need to work hard for you to bring your taxpayers' dollars here like I have. Probably one of my biggest issues, I don't take credit for anything because that's my job, is to bring your taxpayers' dollars back here. So let's not be short-sighted and timid. In the same rock that they throw, Mr. Guzman says that he has executive experience right from Springfield. You can't have it both ways. You can't be disingenuous, working for Ryan and Blagojevich, right? So I wanted to make sure that we're solid, that I am committed, a commitment from me, that we're transparent, ethical, and accountable. That we come up and create an economic development and jobs plan for the whole entire city, not just downtown. We still have empty buildings and empty storefronts that you're paying for. And then also to make sure that we have a sustainable budget. We do not have a sustainable budget right now. What we should say is who's best qualified to make sure we're working at the federal and state level to bring back your tax dollars. And with my humble opinion, it is me. We've had a lot of years of all these three people up here. Now they want to do something. It's important that you understand at this time and place, we need to work at every level across parties to make sure Aurora is the best, second largest city in the country, and we have the ability to do that. I'm asking for your support, and I will humbly work every day like I was in the Army to earn it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chapellavia. Mr. Guzman.
Well, I'm proud to be one of the few folks who was part of a Republican governor's administration who was then appointed to a political position in executive management by a Democratic governor. And there aren't too many people who can say that they have been able to be relied upon for policy advice and executive management by governors of both parties. Just this last fall, Aurora was ranked as one of the top 20 best run cities in the nation. And one of the things that was, and this was an online social media investor site that looked at a variety of different things, and one of the things that Aurora ranked best on was actually public safety. We were 5th out of the 150 largest cities, and Aurora's about the 112th largest city in the nation, and we were 5th in terms of overall safety. And I think a lot of people wouldn't have believed that if you told them that that's where we'd be 20 years ago. Over the past 12 years, we've seen crime steadily drop to historic lows. We've fully gotten back beyond the recession, and we're above pre-recession building levels. And we've done that by all while walking back the operational property tax level to the 2005 level. So in spite of the worst national recession of our lifetimes, Aurora is safer and stronger and more stable. I think that the approach of inclusivity and collaboration is the future. I think we need to include everybody who we seek to help. An approach that realizes what every single person can bring to the table and contribute. That's the approach that I've taken in everything in my life, and it's the approach that I'll take as mayor on how we can collectively and collaboratively move this city forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters, as I said, is nonpartisan. We are a political organization, and we have forums like this all the time. We have them for local positions. We'll have them for Batavia, Geneva, and St. Charles, for school board, for mayor, for park district. We are not technically in Aurora, but we have been recruited several times to come to Aurora and do forums. We would love to have you show up at some of our other forums when we do them for county and state positions. So look for us for notices before the spring elections, look for us before the fall elections in 2018. And now I would like to thank you all for coming, because you've sat through 1 hour and 49 minutes very patiently. I appreciate it. And I'd like to have you give all of our candidates a round of applause. They have agreed to stick around a little while out in the lobby for a little meet and greet, and then you can take signs and stuff home with you. Thank you very much.